This should be played at high volume, preferably in a residential area.
Hello, I'm Chuck Borowitz.
And I'm Joe Natoli, and you are listening to the Hard Volume Experience, where we talk about the soul-crushing, life-changing, ass-kicking power of music.
Buckle up, we're talking about genres we love and celebrating some of our favorite bands, new and old.
We are honored to have you along on this joyride of musical obsession, so without further ado, let's get to it. Well, hello, Chuck.
Hey, Joe, how are you? Long time no see.
Yeah, right? At least 10 minutes. I'm doing good. How about yourself?
I'm doing well, sir. Doing well. Trying to stay out of trouble.
Well, that's a full-time job.
Yeah, that is. Well, let's kick it off like we did last time. What are you listening to right now, Joe? I'm going to put you on the spot.
All right, that's an easy answer because I've been listening to this nonstop for literally the last almost 72 hours. It is called Bells on Sand, and it is by a guy named Gerald Clayton. It's a jazz release, but it's really rich, deep, immersive, atmospheric. There's a lot of space, and the feel of it, for lack of a better term, reminds me a lot of Coltrane's Love Supreme. Not so much in, like Coltrane was. There's so much there, so much. In notes and phrasing, in fullness and exploration, and he's all over the place. This is not that; it's a lot quieter. But man, there's a something there. Call that some sort of, I don't know, spirituality, otherness. There's something in that recording that from the first 30 seconds in, I was like, wow, I'm gonna have to sit down to listen to this.
So it sounds really immersive, Joe. Like that's right up your alley.
Yeah. And that's, me. I love things I can get lost in. I can truly get lost in, and this has been that so far. It feels like it's a trip. You literally go somewhere when you listen, and you're not conscious of anything else. I think that to me is the key. When I'm listening to something, I want to be so focused on what's in my ears that there just isn't literally another fleeting thought about anything. It's just, you're just there. And I love when music can do that for me. And this is one of those things. Bells on Sand, Gerald Clayton. Worth your while.
I share. Can't wait to check it out. New one for me.
All right. So what are you listening to?
I am listening to Metal Night by Sir Christopher Lee.
Nice. That is awesome.
What do I say about this? Released May 26, 2014. Add metal singer to the long list of Sir Christopher Lee's credentials.
Yeah.
Metal Night is a mix of 4 standards covered by Lee, including I, Don Quixote, The Impossible Dream. Everybody knows that one, right? To dream.
Yeah.
Just as much as anybody wants to hear me sing.
I don't know. I kind of want more.
Only one. You and my mom. And My Way is on there, of course, made famous by old Frank Sinatra.
Sure.
Lee provides a backstory for each of the songs on YouTube. It's awesome. So that really plays into what I love about exploring music and learning things like, wait, there's a whole How I Made It on YouTube, where he sits down and he talks about them. And man, Christopher Lee was already pretty metal.
Yeah, no doubt.
He started singing in his 90s, and he did it until his dying day. Metal Night's the final album. And I'll be honest, I only recently discovered it like in December while I was exploring Christmas music, just trying to find different things. And I found it, and I did a head tilt.
Really? What?
Like, this doesn't seem like a real thing, but it very much is. And it's really cool.
He did a couple, didn't he? I haven't heard any of them, but I know they exist.
4 or 5, if I'm not speaking out of turn.
Yeah.
It is. Oh my God. You just check it out. It's fun. If you just want to have a fun listen and you don't want to take it too seriously, Meanwhile, I think so many people in the metal community loved him. Like he was friends with Iommi from Sabbath, and I was just like blown away. Really am in the most positive way when I see
Yeah.
that.
I'm gonna have to check that out. I've been a fan of his my entire life since I was a kid. His Dracula movies were always
Horror genre,
the Hammer
right?
films
But,
were always my favorites. He was to me was the quintessential Dracula character, in those old Hammer films. So and I've never seen him in anything where I felt like he was less than amazing. The voice itself is magnificent. I mean, in terms of speaking voice, like you could live your whole life and never sound that awesome when you open your mouth.
yeah.
So I'm gonna check that out.
He can sing. Anyway, that's my
Who
show.
knew?
I didn't know.
All right. So how do I lead into this? What are we talking about tonight?
Listen, I want to give you complete ownership of this because we talked about it and you said, if we're doing this, we got to talk about this band because I have notes. So if you don't mind making an introduction, kicking it off, that would be awesome.
I can do that. We are here today to talk about the genius, the absolute unmitigated 14-song genius that is Tin Machine. Yes. And we'll talk about the subsequent releases as well. But this one in particular, I don't know how anybody feels about this album, okay? And I actually read that it got slagged when it came out, which is mind-blowing to me. This to me is one of the greatest recordings ever put down on tape anywhere in the history of ever. And I think we'll probably get to why that is. It's one of my absolute favorites. So I think that's why it came up when we first started talking about this. And I think in my head, I was kind of like, everybody hates this record.
Why does
and I
everybody
think it's
hate
great.
this record?
I don't know. I just know a lot of people who were like, I don't like Tin Machine. Like, I love Bowie, but I don't like Tin Machine. I'm like,
David Bowie with extra, and I don't like the extra. I just want
what the fuck is
Bowie.
wrong with you? I don't know how that's possible. I mean, he's more Bowie on this record than he's ever been in his entire life.
I agree. Listen, I'm a newbie to Tin Machine. I didn't know where to start. Usually when we do this, I sit down and I start typing out notes, and this is how I type in real life. And I'm just,
it's good to know.
Where do I start with this? Because it's not genre bending, it's genre introducing. And
yes,
it's the missing link between rock and how grunge came to be.
I knew you were going to say it. I absolutely knew you were going to say it. That's why I knew you would get it.
How can you miss that? It's right there.
Yeah.
They talk, you talk about bands from LA. For me, I think a lot about acts like L7. Okay, absolutely. I had no idea about.
I mean, this was it was its own thing, and it was a precursor to me, to all that stuff. Now, there were bands obviously operating in the same space, but they weren't sort of on anybody's radar yet. I mean, the Pixies were obviously around. Sonic Youth was around. You mentioned L7. I mean, a lot of these bands were certainly out and playing, but nobody had sort of done what these four guys did. And what I hear here and what I absolutely adore about this record, it's the sound of a band. Okay. It's the sound of four guys laying it down very organically. And by all accounts, that's what happened. They laid this down. The majority of it was recorded right off the floor. No separate tracks. We're playing as a band. We're going to record everything. And if there are things that we want to change later, there were some minor overdubs, but at everybody's insistence, it was going to be live. And Bowie even apparently didn't change his initial lyrics, which he almost always did throughout his career. He'd write, initial lyrics and then revise them and revise them and revise them. Yeah. And he wanted to stick to the spirit of what it was. And that to me is what this sounds like. It's like unbridled, uncontrolled, no rules creativity on just about every level. These guys are doing whatever the hell they feel like doing.
Especially on interviews, which I watched a few.
Yeah.
Those guys do not care. They are who they are. They know they are.
Right.
Maybe Reeves doesn't.
Well, he's probably the only reserved one, I think.
So we should talk about the lineup at some point.
Yeah.
And how this came to be.
Yeah.
Because for folks like me who didn't know any better, it really speaks a lot to it.
Lay it out.
And yeah, so members, some guy named David Bowie, lead vocals, saxophone, guitar, Reeves Gabriel's guitar and vocals, Tony Fox Sales, bass and vocals, Hunt Sales, drums and vocals. By the way, Tony and Hunt are brothers, and they previously performed with Bowie and Iggy Pop in '77. Fun fact, they're the sons of Soupy Sales. And I know who that is because I'm older than I look.
Yeah, me
For
too.
the kids out there, Soupy Sales was a comedian, and he was very funny, and people loved him. And so this is his two kids. So
yep, and he had a face that looked like someone named Soupy. So
he did. It worked
there's
out.
that.
Am I forgetting somebody? I think Eric.
There was Kevin Armstrong played some rhythm guitar and Hammond B3 organ as well on both those records.
That's right. Armstrong is on the 2 studio albums. He played on the first tour. Eric comes in, guitar, keyboards, second tour on Oy Vey.
Yep.
Baby.
Yep. Yeah. And I mean, the 2 Sales brothers, and again, you know, people may not know their names, but if you ever heard Iggy Pop's Lust for Life, you've heard the Sales brothers.
You have. And I mean, oh man, talk about songs that are in the ether. That's another one. You already know the song.
Right. And think about it. Okay. The rhythm section makes that song. The rhythm section made that record in its entirety. And these guys are telepathic in the way that they play each other. You know, bass and drums, siblings, like you can't possibly ask for a better combination. And even here on this record as well, I mean, they are punchy beyond belief. And I've always been of the belief that you cannot have a great band first without a great drummer, right? If you don't have a drummer, you have nothing. And if you don't have a great rhythm section in general, which means the bass has to be working in lockstep also, you also have nothing. So what a find. I mean, I don't remember the story of how Bowie came across these guys because I think he was working with Gabriel's already. So I don't know how he found them, but man, what a stroke of luck.
Yeah. So I have run across one theory about the genesis of Tin Machine. I'd love to run it by you.
Sure.
The claim is Bowie was at something of a creative crisis, and he asked Reeves if he would start a band with him, but he didn't know. They started out as friends first. I'm going to Tarantino this story like I always do because I forget stuff. But they were friends, Reeves and David.
Yeah.
But David didn't know that Reeves was also a musician. And I think it was Reeves's wife who said to him after David said something like, if there's ever anything I could do for you. And she was like, actually, Reeves is a great guitarist. So it would be great if you could, do something with him.
I think that's right. I think she was a publicist for somebody, and I can't remember for who. Maybe I wonder if she was involved in his last tour, in the Glass Spiders tour, which came off of Never Let Me Down, I think was that record, Bowie's last record before this. That sounds really familiar, that story, for some reason.
So the part about the genesis of it is that Bowie felt like he was at a creative crossroads or maybe a crisis. And
probably both.
Probably. And he starts talking to Gabriel's and about, something they could do. And he said, what if we started a band and you just play your most outrageous licks and you toss it to me and we go back and forth and you challenge me in that way and help me build up that muscle so that I can kind of find my way again.
I believe that. I mean, I really believe that because I felt like, and by all accounts, I mean, he was kind of tapped out. That album really didn't do well. Never Let Me Down did not do well at all. It was grossly overproduced, which is something we may return to later for a future release. And I know it didn't do well. And I know the tour, Glass Spider tour, it was visually incredible. But I think that was a failure as well in terms of attendance. And people were just like, I don't know. I don't think so. So I think for the first time, I think you're right. I think he found himself kind of floundering a little bit, and he wasn't used to that. So as is the Bowie motif throughout his entire life, it's like, all right, how do I throw myself a curveball here and do something else? You know, I mean, this is a guy that's never been afraid to sort of tear it up and start again, to be sure.
It's Ziggy Stardust.
Yeah.
He seems to like he would be fearless.
That's one thing that you talk to people all the time, right? You run into ruts in your career, in your life, if you're an artist or a musician or anybody. I mean, you run into points in your life where you sort of hit the wall and you go, all right, well, what do I do now? Well, you kind of have two options. Either you quit or you find a different way forward. And finding a different way forward almost always involves letting go of things that you may have been sort of holding on to, you know, like, well, this has always worked in the past. Like, why is it not working now?
Yeah.
Who the hell knows why it's not working now? But it isn't. So you either own that or you don't. And again, I think in Bowie's case throughout his career, when people were done with something, when he was done with something, he was like, whatever, it's done, it's over. This, I mean, when I listen to this record, he sounds like he's having the time of his life.
Yeah,
you know,
he's
fully engaged.
He's having a lot of fun.
Fully engaged. I mean, on the songs that are kind of wackier and goofier, but then there's a lot of seriousness here as well, and a lot of rage, which is not something you hear from him prior to this. I don't think, not like this anyway.
Don't look at me, you flood heads. This nation's turning blue. It's stinking fouls the highways. It's hell, it sticks like a hit crack.
The live album, the Paris album, David Bowie's up there cracking jokes.
Yeah,
and they're not all great.
Yeah,
but
he doesn't care.
Having fun.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's some great lines in this. Bus Stop, for example. The last two lines of the first verse.
I love you despite your convictions, but God never laughs at my joke. I'm a young man who nods with the Bible, but I don't pretend faith never works. We're down on our knees.
I love you despite your convictions that God never laughs at my jokes. I mean, this is great.
Now Jesus, he came in a vision and offered you redemption from sin. I'm not saying that I don't believe you, but are you sure that it really was him? I've been told that it could have been blue cheese or the meal that we ate down the road.
I mean, he's just like taking the piss, as the British would say. I mean, he's just having a blast, you know, whatever comes off the top of his head, he's just nailing it. And he sings that song in this goofy, exaggerated English accent as well.
Yeah.
That just makes the whole thing work, you know?
And I think at the same time, he's also going back to the stuff he loves.
Yeah.
He's having fun.
Yeah.
He's like, let's take it back a bit. He's saying to Reeves, like, I'm looking for a guitarist who can do a combination of things. I want a Jeff Beck, God rest his soul. I want a Jimi Hendrix. I want an Adrian Bellew. I want a Robert Fripp. I want a little Stevie Ray Vaughan. And while you're at it, can you also be Albert King?
Right.
You can do that, right?
Right. And Gabriel's could do it all.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't know what to expect, right? When I bought this. I remember getting it and putting it on, and you hear the first notes of Heaven's in Here, which has a very traditional sort of bluesy sort of feel to it.
I thought it was the Doors when I heard it.
Right. It sounds like the Doors. And you're like, okay, this is different. And then by the time they get to the solo, I mean, the chorus is one thing, it ramps up another level entirely. And then you get to the solo, especially towards the end, which is just all over the place. torturing those strings. It's the best way I can describe it, you know, and it's just wild and unbridled and all over the place. And you're just like, wow. Like that was an experience. I just lived through something. And I love that song as well. Some of the lyrics in that tune are really deep as well.
I think the suits, like they wore like the three-piece suits, like
Yeah.
it kind of held a little bit of it. And for me, it made it a surprise. I wasn't expecting that
No.
kind of unhinged performance
No,
when he's dressed like that.
no, not at all. And there's some serious intensity throughout this record. I mean, a couple of great lines in that first tune as well.
First and last, telling it all, telling it loud, but selling it small, taking a swing at this shadow of mine. Crucifix hangs, my heart's in my mouth, but it's here.
Oh my God. Just intense, you know?
The level of songwriting in those, and I didn't dissect it the way that you are right now, and it's having such an impact because it really is taking me to Black Star, the last David Bowie album.
Yeah.
And there's a line in one of those songs about, if I never see the evergreens that I'm running to, it's nothing to me. It's nothing to see. You know, and so he takes the goal and he tells you about, like, this has been my aim, but also the aim doesn't really matter because it's really not about that. And it's that same thing thematically when I hear you talk about it. So chills.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've been listening to this as well. In addition to my, you know, our what do you listen to lately? I have been listening to this because I knew this was coming up, this conversation. And man, it's tremendous all the way through. The second song is a clinic as well. I mean, Tin Machine is a clinic in and of itself of songwriting, of exploration, of creativity, of amazing, you know, lyrical depth, of frustration, of rage, of sort of almost predictions about not only the coming future, but what's happening right now in the present that is sort of predicting that future. I mean, there's a lot of cynicism here, I guess, for lack of a better word.
Yeah.
Baby down, clarity and prayer. There's more than money moving here, there's miners maggot glare. Working horse, happy Tories, spittle on their cheeks. Carving up on children's future, freedom, Alan Green.
Like, we're running out of time here. Huge, just huge. And again, I don't think I'd ever heard him sound as driven, emotionally driven, as he is on this record. And like the song Tin Machine in particular, when you get to the pre-chorus, he's throwing his full weight behind every single word. And you're not used to hearing Bowie sing like that. He's an emotional singer, but he's very precise, and he's very, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is. He's careful is not the right word either, but he's very meticulous about how he phrases things. You never sort of hear him just come out with like, this is me right now. I don't know how to describe that.
He builds, okay, so comparing two great singer-songwriters, Ronnie James Dio and David Bowie, I find that when Dio sings and he expresses himself, his power is in the ability to take the word and to extend its vowels. And that's, for me, where he draws so much of that from. It's like opera.
Yeah.
And when I listen to David Bowie, it's a little bit of a flip. I don't hear him extracting out every nook and cranny of the way something sounds. He's done that beforehand in the writing. He's writing these really intricate passages, which somehow he's able to weave into song. That's the mystery part for me that always makes it fun to listen to any of this guy's music, is how did you do that? Like, these are really big concepts and you put it in this container for me. I don't want to know the trick. I really don't.
Yeah, right. Right. It gives too much away. If you sort of knew how it worked. He's definitely in control of his voice. I mean, he uses his vibrato that way sometimes and hangs on the edge of words and sort of cuts them short purposely, sometimes in the same way. He sort of knows when to sort of, for lack of a better term, sort of strangle something.
Yeah.
And cut it off, or let it lie, let it come out more, or get that grit behind it, or go up high and not be afraid to let his voice crack a little bit, to serve that moment in the song. And I think this record is full of that.
I can't read, but the song
that's good.
I can't read. That is a test in a largest degree. I think it is a garbled, messy, free come as you are kind of thing for Nirvana, and like it's building off of I Can't Read.
Right.
It's honed to reinforce a fractured narrative, and this is evidence again. David's got some lines, Reeves has got some licks, and David might be over here talking about blue cheese, and then Reeves is like, look out.
Right. I
got this for you. And it's just this.
Right.
Please lay over this part where we're making mouth noises with the actual track.
Why? It's so good.
And how do you, like, when you hear that, how do you like maintain composure and like come back with the next lyric in a rehearsal? I know they're working out the kinks, and maybe this is one of those where they're like, let's go back to that a couple of times because there's something there.
Yeah, I Can't Read is all over the place, and it's chilling in spots because he sings it in this sort of disaffected, sort of monotone speaking.
I can't read and I can't write down. I don't know a book from Countdown. I don't care which shadow gets me. All I've got is someone's face.
I'm afraid now. I don't know if I want to listen to the rest of this.
Yeah.
Or there's a line that goes, I don't care which shadow gets me. Like, we're in dangerous territory right now. What is happening? It's all over the place. Like you said, it's a big, I don't know,
listening to
mess
it,
of a song.
Like, is this where he's got to go to reclaim his artistic freedom? Does he have to go to hell to unlock it?
Right.
And set it free again? Intentionally hits all the cues I'd expect, but in an unexpected way.
Very much.
And I think it's got a couple of Led Zeppelin inspired moments in there, but it's definitely pre-grunge.
Agreed. And it also, I think it's also foreshadowing for, some of the sort of out there stuff that he did later. There's a lot of exploration later in albums, like Outside, for example, that he did with Trent Reznor. Moments on Earthling. There were moments on little moments on The Next Day, on Black Star, of course, where he just it's kind of like he had given himself license again to just like, no, I don't care whether this is a song per se. I don't care whether this is a traditional structure or what the lyrics have to say or what. I'm going with it. Whatever. It's very impressionistic in a way, for lack of a better term. But to your point, he's just inviting everything to me, is what it feels like. Another song I wanted to make it a point to point out is Prisoner of Love, the third track.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit. I mean, 4 minutes and 50 seconds of like film noir come to life. It's got all those, it feels like I can see the movie in my head when I hear that song. The minute he starts the opening verse, I'm right there in that scene.
Don't look back. Ever it takes to save your life. I believe I belong to you for a long time. And my heart says, no one but you.
I don't know if that was intentional, but that's what it feels like to me.
With this band, it might be the case where it might not have been the intent, but afterwards they're like, oh, maybe the intent, like any art student coming up in the ranks, the intent comes after the work's actually done. Because we didn't understand it. We didn't know what it was until it was finished.
Like a rescue on the dark street, love walked into town. I was a victim of my own self-persecution. I'm a prisoner of love, but I'm coming on for air.
It's a really good point, because that to me is what this whole record feels like. It does, in a lot of ways, it does feel like an art project.
They're very dismissive of interviewers. I watched one's interviews for the second album, and they're quick to crack the joke. They're quick to tell an interviewer, hey, that's not actually the album you're holding. You're just holding the cover art. What a lie. But they're getting around every other question that person's asking them about, why did you go in this direction in that song? Why, why are you only playing small venues?
And they're probably like, I don't know. Why do you need an answer to that question?
Yeah, just accept for what it is. And maybe we know that this is an art project and we're honing our skills and we just want to do it in front of small crowds because David's used to playing big shows all the time and it's just supposed to be different and challenge him and have people be up in his face. Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, it sounded like that was the intent. He wanted to be done. He wanted to do away with everything that came before, including the types of venues. I remember at the time in one of the print interviews I read for this record for Tin Machine, I think he said something like, I'm so excited about this. I want to go and record another one right now. And I think that's it. I think they just had such an amazing time. I think they did it in a matter of weeks, if I remember correctly. And what I read was that they recorded something like 35 tracks, and narrowed it down to these 14. So again, back to what I said at the outset, when you have 4 people in a room and that magic that happens between musicians is happening, that sort of innate natural communication where everybody's on fire, everybody's feeding off of what everybody else does, not just beforehand working out songs, but in the moment as well. It's a frenzy. And when that faucet is on. It's like a fire hose. And again, that to me, I know I sound like a broken record, but that's what all this feels like to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one of the reasons I love it the way that I do, because I can feel that part.
Well, I don't think you're sounding like a broken record. I think we're distilling this together and we're kind of getting to the root of what this might be. Because if it's an art project and simply that, someone please explain to me why you would throw a cover of a John Lennon song in there. What does it mean? Why is Working Class Hero on this album, and why are they so good at it?
I was just, I'm going to blaspheme a little bit right now. I love this version a million times more than the original.
If you're watching the YouTube video, we're ducking.
You know I love you, okay?
Waiting for shoes to be thrown.
Right. I'm sorry. It just the venom that Lennon wrote the song with is definitely in the lyrics. It's definitely in the song. I never felt it the way I feel it in this song. Delivering it with the frustration and venom and anger of somebody who's living in that situation. Comes across in spades, and the instrumentation obviously does its job as well. So all I can say is that I feel this version in a way that I never felt the original. And it's a great song. Don't get me wrong, it's a tremendous song. I mean, there's no doubting John Lennon's prowess as an artist or a songwriter or a musician. There's no question there.
We talked last episode about how great songs do that, right? They transcend and they can be adopted. And this isn't too far out from the genre that it was originally written for.
No,
but it is so amped up. It is just an awesome tonal inflection.
Yeah.
And gritty where it makes sense.
So religion and sex and TV. And you think you're so clever and classless and free, but you're still fucking peasants as far as I can see.
Those are my notes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Like
Great
I said, he's selling it. I mean, he's really selling it. Where you wouldn't think this is a very wealthy English gentleman singing this song. You would think it's somebody who's on his last, who's literally, on his last, the last thread of his patience and his sanity from being ground down, by a society who's telling him how to live and how to be and what to do and refuses to give him a fair shake. Like I said, I feel it. When I hear it, I totally feel all that.
When Billy Joe Armstrong sings it, I believe it.
Yeah. Yep.
When David Bowie and Tin Machine perform it, oh, I really believe it.
Yeah.
I really believe it. They're selling it. Quoting you, they know how to sell that song.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree. And it just comes across. That comes across in 2 tracks before that, Under the God, which they made a video for. If I remember correctly.
What's that? Downright bop, Joe.
Is it?
It is. Absolutely.
Classified.
Artwork, aggressive,
Downright bop.
Heavy on chorus.
Yeah.
On the band name. Heavy on the chorus filter. Again, another nod to Come As You Are. But that wouldn't come out for another 2 years.
Yeah, talking about neo-Nazis. I mean, the lyrics are just direct and angry.
White trash picking up Nazi flags. While there was gone, there was whoa. This is the West, get used to it. They put a swastika over the door. Under the guard, under the guard. One step over the red line.
Whoa! David is
I already
angry.
love your band.
Huh?
I'm in. Okay, stop.
Yeah, right. I mean,
band. I already love Tin Machine.
Yeah, I mean, you're feeling the anger.
That's the one that brought it home for me. I was like,
okay,
I'm in. Like, I believe in that. Okay.
Washing their heads and the toilet bowl. They don't see supremacist hate. Right-wing dicks in their boiler suits, picking out who to annihilate. Toxic
89. How is this?
In 1989, exactly.
1989.
Exactly. I remember playing this for a girl I was dating at the time, she was very classic rock. Okay. And huge David Bowie fan, but more so in the sort of hunky-dory era of Bowie, and loved everything aside from that as well. So I remember getting this, and I remember driving to her house, and I'm like, you have to hear this. Like, this is Bowie's latest project. She's like, yeah, that's really cool. So we get in the car, and I put it on, and Heaven's in Here comes on, and imagine yourself, right? As much as we love this record, you're looking at the other person, you're going, yeah, right, and they look like this. What? And it's just going down in flames, So
how do we make
14
those
tracks
expressions accessible for
right.
people who aren't watching the YouTube?
Right. You're making the scrunched up face. They're making that scrunched up face. It's like, I don't understand what's happening to my beloved icon who's not doing the thing that I expect him to do. And I spent the next 13 tracks after that trying to explain the brilliance of this record. And it was not landing at all, no matter how I tried to sell it. She was just not having any of it. Like, this is the worst fucking thing I've ever heard in my life. I don't understand why I'm dating you anymore. If
I could have been your Jiminy Cricket that day, I would have leaned over and whispered, "Get out.
Stop. You're making a mistake.
Aren't you supposed to be my conscience?" Usually, but I mean, come on. She doesn't get how good this album is. Just
right. Cut it short. You're done. You're done here. There's nothing more to accomplish. Yeah, that was a sign, by the way. And I should have taken it as such. But yeah, and you're right. For this time period, not even close. I mean, especially when you consider what was being played on popular radio, at the time. EMI, I think it was EMI. Yeah, this came out in EMI. When they heard it, when it was finished and they heard it for the first time, they were pissed. They were pissed. They were angry. And they were like, what is this? They're looking for the next Let's Dance. Okay.
Okay.
And they got this. Can you imagine?
If I may be so bold, may I regale you with just a few of the big hits from 1989 that this was coming up against?
Please do, Chuck.
I'm going to try not to sing these, but sometimes I can't help myself.
Go for it.
Blame It on the Rain.
Yeah.
We're not even singing this. Somebody sang that song and they did really good, but it wasn't those two guys.
No.
Skid Row, 18 in Life. That's actually pretty good.
Yeah, that's pretty good song.
She drives me crazy
like no one else.
Oh, we're taking this on the road. Yeah, Fine Young Cannibals.
Which makes me want to stab myself in the eye when I hear it, by the way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, I happen to like Fine Young Cannibals. That's all right. Janet Jackson, Miss You Much.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Prayer, Madonna.
Oh my God.
Also, Cherish, Madonna. Also, Express Yourself, Madonna.
Oh my God. Yeah, we're in deep waters here.
Yeah. Soldier of Love by Donny Osmond.
I don't even remember that song.
Coming to save the day. I'm going to save the day with this one.
All right.
Bust a Move, Young MC.
Mm-hmm. Inescapable at that time.
Inescapable. And Simply the Best. Just the best, Tina Turner. How was there not room for this album in that lineup?
I can't imagine.
It's driving me crazy, Joe. Like no one else.
and you can't help yourself? Is what I'm hearing.
And I can't help myself.
Okay. Well.
We're editing all this out.
No, we're not. It's awesome. It's awesome. Perhaps it was the right-wing dicks in their boiler suits line that put everyone off their lunch.
Probably was.
In that crowd. I don't know.
Maybe they should make like Madonna and express themselves.
It's kind of amazing that Skid Row wound their way in there. Because that's a pretty tragic, depressing, and somewhat angry song as well.
It's hitting the right political notes, though.
Yeah, right. That's true. That's true. Very true. So yeah, I don't know I agree with you. I don't know how this record exists, but like you said at the outset, this was sort of a harbinger of things to come, and shit, let's face it, if anyone was going to push the narrative, it was definitely going to be David Bowie.
Yeah. Anything you want to say about the song Pretty Thing? Because I have 3 words only.
No, because now I want to hear the 3 words first before I open my mouth.
Fast, fast, fast. Editor's note, my description may have only been 1 word. Fast.
3 fucking
Oh my God,
times.
this song. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is. And you don't see it coming.
Think about the good things. Think about the bad things. Think about the reason.
Like someone breaking your door down.
But again, that's the delight for me,
Yeah.
where they're literally like, you don't know what to expect with this. Usually when you hear songs like this, at least the radio friendly stuff, it's got a nice even tone, ebbs and flows very well together. It's all very kumbaya. Not this shit.
No.
This stuff is soothing and melodic, and no.
Yeah.
It is in your face, and it takes a break, and it just plays into later with grunge, the whole loud, quiet, loud thing.
Totally.
Here it is.
Oh my God. And again, rhythm section. Okay. Those drums hit like a fist. Pummeling. It's both fists really quickly. It's like, it's one of those guys. Like I always said that the guys you have to be afraid of in terms of fights are never the guys that are going to talk your ear off about how they're going to kick your ass for 20 minutes. It's the guys who just don't say anything. They just come out swinging. And before you know it, like you're on the ground. That's what this song is.
Yeah.
It's a couple words and then bang, you're on your back before you understand what exactly just happened. Yeah.
May we take a second to just reflect on the Sales Brothers for a moment?
Yes.
These guys, thank you. These guys know that they're good.
Yes.
I am trying to remember where I heard it, because I like to cite my sources. But when they all met together in the room where it happened, the Sales Brothers were like, well, we know who we are because our dad was famous and we're not half bads ourselves, and everybody else knows David Bowie. And they're looking at Reeves and they're like, and why are you here? Who are you?
And you are, and you're here because you can do what?
Yeah. Well, we all find out, in time, we found out what he could do. But when I ran across that, I kind of didn't like them for a minute. I'm like, you pretentious dicks. Just be cordial.
Yeah.
But that's totally not who they are. And it totally comes out in the interviews too. They're not afraid to try to take David Bowie down a notch and, say that he's got a God complex or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the laughs are just for them.
I think so. You definitely get that vibe. There's a lot of, in the same clips that I've seen, there's a whole lot of inside joking going on there.
Yeah,
where they're just sort of really in your face sarcastic. And that apparently was the vibe in the studio as well, as everyone describes it. And that the Sales Brothers, as brothers, are sort of relentlessly doing that to each other. Like super harsh, sarcastic, and to the point where people were kind of concerned, like, are they okay? Are they going to fight? Like, what's going to happen here? And
yeah,
whoever it was said, no, it's just how they are.
Yeah. Guys like me, it takes a while to figure it out, because I'd be like, are those guys fighting? This isn't going to work.
That would be me too. I don't catch those things very well. You know,
Yeah,
they get rid of my head.
Something for me to work on, I guess.
How to be a sarcastic asshole. I'm gonna take that course. Maybe it's on Udemy.
Maybe.
So I'm curious to get your take on Tin Machine 2, right? Which I have very strong opinions about. I will warn you now. But I'm curious, before I volunteer any of them, I'm really curious to hear your take on it.
This, unlike the first album, which was released as a rock album, was released as an alt rock album. If your opinion is that it's really great, then we're going to get along swimmingly in this part of the conversation.
And if it isn't?
Oh, man. Baby Universal, One Shot, You Belong in Rock and Roll. If there is something, Goodbye, Mr. Ed, A Big Hurt. Just spend the rest of the podcast just playing as much of the album as you can, without us getting pulled down on YouTube for copyright infringement, I guess.
We're gonna find out.
One Shot, forebearer of Rage Against the Machine. More melodic. This is that tennis match again with Reeves and David. It's evident to me. So I believe that origin story that I ran across when I heard this song.
Mm-hmm.
You Belong in Rock and Roll, acoustic, string instruments, atmospheric. I imagine you love this song for that. I like it for its message about belonging, and sonically, I like it for being a tidal wave. There are surges. That's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah.
And it just washes over you. I'll throw one more out there because I'm going to hog the whole time on this one.
No. Go.
I think I love this one more than the first one. It's the Empire Strikes Back to A New Hope.
Interesting.
In Tin Machine. You Can't Talk. This song is inspired. It sounds like something out of the Red Hot Chili Peppers' early days.
See that.
I will leave that there.
I can certainly see that. So I'm the opposite of you. In that it was impossible.
Totally.
It was impossible to beat the first record. It just wasn't gonna happen. Here's why. 2 has tremendous songs, fantastic songs. There isn't a bad song on that record. Okay. First, let's get that out of the way. So the part I absolutely agree with you with is that it's just tremendous music. Okay, it's tremendous. I will admit that the very beginning of Baby Universal sort of, for some reason, to me, it feels like it takes a while to get there. Like, okay, what are we doing here? That's nitpicky. Great songs, great lyrics, amazing performances. I love the depth. I love the atmospherics. However, I am unable to judge it completely on its own merit because I heard the first record first. And everything I love about that first record is what I want in the second record. And it's not there. This is difficult for me. All right. And I've been this way with bands all my life. And it's like a curse, to be honest with you, because it prevents me from fully embracing things that I know are amazing. Seriously. For example, like my thing is production. You and I have had pieces of this conversation before. I feel like production should serve the music. And I don't think it always does. Like a lot of times when bands strike a chord with a producer where the producer really understands who they are and allows them to sound more like themselves and everything comes to the forefront. You're like, yeah, that's it. That's the combination. And then they switch producer. And you're like, why did you do that? These songs are monster songs. And I want to hear them recorded the way the first record is recorded. For example, If There's Something, tremendous song. Okay. I mean, it's the solo, Gabriel's solo in the middle is one of the most histrionic things I've ever heard in my entire life. And it's just genius. Genius. He's pulling so much out of that instrument. I don't even think I have words to properly describe it. All that passion and emotion and drive to me is neutered by the production. It's held back. It sits perfectly in its place in the mix. It's polished. It never overpowers everything else. And it should. The way it sounds, it should. You know what I mean? When you're playing like that, it should come out front and on top of everything else and edge some things out of the mix. That should happen to me. And it doesn't. And there's always part of me when I hear that, I'm kind of like, oh, man. Same issue with Big Hurt goes the same way. I want that song to be recorded on the floor, in your face, live. Instead, it's like it's noise gated into oblivion where every silence is perfectly crisp. You know, you don't get the sense of a band going boom and everybody coming down on the one at the same time. You get the sound of an engineered series of sounds that are precisely aligned on a computer. You know what I mean?
I hear the words you're saying,
but
I'm having a hard time getting past the hurt.
It hurts me, Chuck.
It hurts me, Joe.
Right?
You and I will never talk about Metallica because I know where it's going to go.
Oh, we're definitely going to have that conversation. Most definitely. Although I love everything that they've done, but I have some. I do have some production issues here and there, to be sure.
I have notes.
This is my thing, no. And I'm telling you, I really wish I could get past this. Because I would enjoy this record a hell of a lot more if I could, but I don't know how. Help me, Chuck, help me. You know,
I can't even help myself some days.
But it's interesting to me that it doesn't bother you. And I'm serious about that. I'm sort of curious about that in a way.
When did you hear the first album?
In 1989.
Okay. How many times did you listen to that album roughly? I know you don't really know how much, but in general.
I probably played it every day for a year.
Did you really?
At least. I mean, wow. It was in constant rotation for several years. I know that.
Thank you for sharing an album with me that you cherish so much, by the way. That's huge.
Yeah, cool. You're welcome. You're welcome. And it really, and I constantly go back to it. To this day, I constantly go back to it. Every couple of months, I'm back on it.
And then when This Gem Tin Machine 2 came out, were you like, it was 1991. Did you get it when it came out? You were excited?
Yeah. Yes. Couldn't wait. The day it was released, I went and got it.
A couple years in between, right? I had a couple days because I'm new to it. And so I haven't jammed on those original tracks the way you have, man. And I think that's probably got something to do with it. Give me time to marinate it before. And I told you about that, like just me in general, when we were talking about Maiden, and you're like, hey, what did you think of Senjutsu? And I'm like, I don't think I can talk about it yet, because I got to listen to it 50 times before. So maybe 50 more times, and I'll start to hear what you're picking up on. Because sonically, I trust you. You know your stuff, but I will say, I get why people didn't like Tin Machine with this album, because it goes a little bit further than the first one did. And I'm going to pick on one song, Stateside. Whoa.
Yeah.
Bowie's not even singing it.
No.
He's singing backup vocals. If people were critical about this band for not being a theatrical Bowie show, I can't imagine the reactions to this.
Too long. She said she missed me since I've been gone. I'll be back soon, ain't no doubt, 'cause she said she wanted my love.
I seriously love the Stevie Ray Vaughan inspired playing, the organ.
That's tremendous.
Blues jam, hot sax alert.
That's Bowie, I think. Even the instrumental at the end, Hammerhead, is fantastic. I mean, like I said, it's a great record. There's no fault to find in any of these songs whatsoever, you know. But I was sort of one of those people in that when I heard, it's one of the Sales Brothers singing, I can't remember which. And I love his voice. He's got a great voice. But it was Bowie.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I want Bowie to sing. Like I've suddenly become that guy, you know, which I don't understand. You know, I'm pretty musically diverse and open-minded, and I pride myself on that, but production gets in my way. It really, really does. And it's interesting you said, you know, about the years thing, and maybe that's what it is. It could be because, and I tend to be obsessive about music I love, where I'll play the death out of it, forever and ever, and I'll keep coming back to it, and it doesn't get old for me. So maybe that's part of it. I don't know, but it makes me want to your point, your description of all this though, and your enthusiasm for it kind of makes me want to force myself to listen to it 50 or sometimes.
Yes, everyone should force themselves to listen to this great album.
Thanks, Chuck.
You're welcome. That's what I'm here for. Torture. Chuck forced me to listen to this exceptional album. It is produced by Tim Machine and Tim Palmer, mixed by Tim Palmer and the band. I wonder if that's different. I don't have the liner notes.
He did the first
album.
Tim Palmer did the first one. I'm looking at it right now.
First one. Okay, so same lineup. Yeah, I don't
Produced
know.
by Tim Machine and Tim Palmer, engineer Justin Shirley Smith, additional engineering David Richards. So unless the engineer was different, I mean, that could be it, but this is production. I mean, this is all producers. So this is what they wanted collectively. And again, it's not like I was not disappointed in the songs at all. Great songs, tremendous songs.
When you jam with people, the first couple times you do it, you are a different kind of collective animal.
Yes.
Than you are when you've spent more time together and you're
Very
gelled, and it's become more collaborative. That may also have changed the relationship here, because maybe now it's kind of less of a test for David Bowie. Now that was fun. Let's do another one, and let's see how we can push it. And
they don't
push it as much.
these are arrangements. Okay. These are more carefully considered songs. You know, you can tell there's a lot more attention to arrangement and melody and detail and sonics, you know, as well. Everything is a lot more carefully considered. So to your point, I think that's accurate, right? This is, now they're a band and they're really thinking about, okay, what do we really want to do here? And I think they probably spent time figuring that out. Whereas the first project is, to your perfect description, it's an art project. It's, let's hit record and let's see what the hell we come up with. Yeah. You know, let's ride this and see where it goes. And those are two different approaches in general, you know, which is, again, the awesome thing about this artist in particular is that his entire career is full of, well, maybe I want to try this, and maybe I want to try this, and maybe I want to do it this way. And I mean, you can't help but applaud that.
It's not the first time he deconstructed himself.
No.
To find it again. We could spend a whole show talking about Spiders from Mars.
Yeah.
Hope we do sometime. But he breaks it down. People wonder, like, is this going to be you now, or what are you doing? Yeah. And he's like, I'll let you know. And,
right.
You know, with a wink and a smile.
Right. And that's why, and I say I love that, because he had to know what people's reaction was going to be, and he had to know what EMI's reaction was going to be, and he did not care. I don't know if there's any truth to this, but I read that after they heard it, they literally started shopping his deal to other labels.
Wow.
To see if they were going to cut him. I think they were considering cutting him loose. Talk about career suicide, right? So I don't know if there's truth to that, but it was reported in two different articles that I read, you know, where they were like, if this is the new Bowie, like, oh, come on, man. Has this guy ever let you down? Are you serious?
If you come to the edge of the world and you've seen everything behind you, if you don't fling yourself off of it, you never force growth. You never learn the lesson. You'll constantly wonder. That feels to me like what he's accomplished through that. Because I do feel like these two albums and the live album are an accomplishment, not just for David Bowie, but for the other guys in the band. What a strange, out of place, time traveling animal. Like, it shouldn't be there.
Right.
Yet it exists.
It's its own little universe.
Yeah. 91 kind of makes sense, but not for the, you say polish, I say sophistication that the second album brings.
That's very diplomatic of you.
Thank you. But yeah, they knew it was I don't know how that ever gets picked, by the way. When I say they knew it was an alt rock album. Who decides that? Because I think they knew to like flip it. Was it a marketing tactic to say, oh, grunge rock's pretty big, and this is kind of like not regular mainstream rock?
Yes, and their case in point again, right? They could have gone the way of more stripped down and more, you know, lo-fi like everything else was right around that time, and chose not to. Right? Said, no, we want to do this. And you have to applaud that. You know, the sticking to your guns, I think, has to be applauded. And you're right about these other musicians as well. Like, I didn't know at the time that the Sales Brothers were on Lust for Life. And when I heard that they were, I went, oh, okay, now this makes sense. Now I understand why these guys are like a train nearly coming off the tracks, you know, at all times, but in complete control at the same time. Reeves Gabrels, I had never heard anybody play the way he played. Now you can list a bunch of people who were experimental, right? From Hendrix to Fripp to Ballou to forgetting somebody, and it probably won't come back to me, but he's on a whole other dimension. Okay, just the way he thinks about guitar and the way he thinks about not just leads, but his melody lines, his chords, his little accents here and there. The guy literally thinks about guitar in this strange, angular way that most guitar players don't. mentioned Jeff Beck earlier. Same. Okay. Same. Had a very unique way of going about the instrument, just doing things that no one would just think to themselves, like, oh, yeah, that's normal.
Yeah, like use the feedback. This thing that I think a lot of artists like shy away from. They want it very controlled. Like, no, amp it up and, see how you can play with that.
Times 10, and he squeezed every one of those notes, no matter where they went. And even if he was like you said, playing with distortion, he found a way to sort of grab it and shape it and move it, in like bend it to his will in a way. And that's, Hendrix was like that. He just, whatever happened naturally, was like, okay, we're going with that. I'm going to take this and I'm going to do something with it. Players throughout history in all genres have done that. And Miles Davis did that, just took things. He took things that his band did that were unexpected. There's a famous story about how he took a wrong note from Herbie Hancock on piano and turned it into something completely different. And Herbie's like, oh, I hit the wrong note. Miles is like, no, it's this. Some people are just like that. And Reeves Gabrels is one of those guys. And I think that's why Bowie stayed with them for quite a while after this on subsequent records. And I think that's why.
And the Sales Brothers are that backbone that you were talking about, and they execute it so well that if they go on one of those, hey, come with me, we're going over here, they know how.
Totally.
Evidently they're telepathic and they can do those things.
Yeah. To go back to the first record, there are lots of parts where, and I could be wrong, okay, but like I said, from what I know, a lot of this was recorded right off the floor. You can sort of hear that happening, where one person does one thing and everyone else goes, yep, we're going there too.
Mm-hmm.
And it happens in little instances throughout. And that is testament to really, truly amazing players, because it's hard to do. I want to do that as a musician. I've been trying to find people to jam with my entire life who were into improvisation. My problem is I'm not good enough at it. All right. I'm not good enough with my instrument to make those hairpin turns constantly. I'm just not. I in my heart, I want to be. So I have tremendous respect for that. And these guys, there's nothing they're not capable of.
Can I say a thing about that?
Yeah.
When people say, I'm not good enough to do that, this conversation about Tin Machine is very appropriate, because David Bowie could have said, I'm not really good enough, I should hang it up.
Yeah.
He found a way to challenge himself. He made a friend. That friend happened to be an amalgamation of amazing guitarists, and like, let's go spar. Let's go sonically freestyle with each other and see what comes out. And
I think that's what you have to try. I still do it because I love it.
And you go back to the things you love.
Yeah, I just have tremendous.
These are my standbys. It's just what they're doing too.
Right.
Never thought about it that way.
To your point, and if you listen to the live stuff as well, it's all over those recordings as well. I know there's a live EP, and then there's a recording from Paris, I want to say.
Yeah.
It's all over those recordings as well. This is a live band being live.
They're a powerhouse, and David's up there just like, I could say whatever. Well, you know who we are, but we don't know who all of you are yet. So
we're going to start over
let's
here.
Just start over here. And this is probably going to take us around 3 hours, and then a laugh. They play some more. It's very not theatrical. They're working on that art project and seeing like what happens when we take this thing that we made and do it live. What are the interactions like? It's the payoff. It's like, this is our final show. And not that was their final show, but going up in art school, like, you gotta get ready for your final, and this is what the show is, and hopefully everybody really loves it. I like on interviews, I don't see him that relaxed.
I wonder if he felt uncomfortable because the spotlight was on him. And I think he really wanted this to be taken as a band. And I think part of the problem there is that if you happen to be David Bowie, it is going to be really difficult for any band you're in to be taken as a band, as a collective, when you're in it.
To me, that's why anybody would hate it.
Yeah.
How dare you have a band of equals where you're not the most important person? Because I came here to see David Bowie.
Yeah.
How dare you, sir?
Yeah, you're right. You're right about that.
Yeah. You know, check your assumptions at the door.
And I think there's probably something welcoming in stepping back and not having to be the center of attention, you know, and not having to carry a project on your shoulders in some ways.
Definitely.
That's what I hear, and I hear it in a live performance. Is that I think he's just out there doing his thing, and he's totally comfortable with it, and is just totally in the moment, you know. And it seems to me like everything he did after that point felt a lot more genuine. Even I can think of different live performances, clips that I've seen from different eras after that, where he just seemed, his demeanor was completely different, like relaxed, like cracking a smile, like this is fun. I'm having fun up here. I remember seeing a live performance. It might have been a VH1 thing or something from the Earthling tour. And he was digging out old songs, and they're reworking everything. And Reeves Gabrels was with them on that tour. And he was just grinning from ear to ear the entire show. Like, I'm loving every single minute of this. Whereas, I think prior to 1989, I think I'm making all this up, right? But I got the sense that he felt trapped by his own thing, you know, by like having to be David Bowie all the time.
Why else would he tear it down?
Right. I mean, that's my thinking.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of the proof. As much as we get to know about the private lives of artists, right, that's the proof is just in what's documented in what you're doing and what you're presenting.
Yeah.
And if you're the type of person who's like, I'm going to go tour as Ziggy Stardust for a while, and we're not going to talk about David Bowie, and then eventually you come back and you do that for a while, and then you start a band. Is it the business side? Like, I'm getting caught up in the business of being a musician and what the marketing is behind me, and I'm forgetting that I got into this because it was fun and I had an aptitude for it, and it was nice to make a paycheck.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if I had to guess, I would certainly say so. I don't think you'll be hard pressed to find a creative person of any kind, okay, whether it's actors, musicians, artists, designers, UX folks. I think that there's all this other stuff that gets in the way of the part that you love and the part that you're best at and the part that you truly enjoy, the place where you feel like you are most you know, where you're home, where you're like, this is what I'm supposed to be doing, you know, which is a natural place. And there's all this other periphery surrounding you that is very unnatural. And I think, especially if you reach fame at that scale, I think it's unavoidable that it starts to grate on your nerves. You know, I mean, people bitch about artists who, you know, they'll say, well, you know, this person wouldn't sign my autograph. And then you find out that the person was asking while the musician was like at a urinal, you know, like, look, I mean, there has to be a line somewhere of, okay, I'm also a human being. I get to like have some moments to myself. I can't imagine having to live my life at every single moment. People are like following you, trying to take your picture, like wanting to talk to you. Like, you're appreciative, I'm sure, but come on, man. I mean, as a fan, I made the mistake once, and I said, I'll never do that again. So if I ever, I have had, but if I ever have like close contact with some rock star again, I am not saying a word. The best gift I can give to them for what they've given to me is space. Yeah, I think so. I mean, unless you're in a situation where that's what's happening, right? I mean, there's a meet and greet somewhere, or there's
if I paid for the experience, they're gonna talk to me. Or
there's an autograph session or something, like, you know, I've seen guys in airports, for example, musicians, And sometimes it's just sometimes just a nod of a head, right? Or one of these, just something to say, thank you. That's all. And you move on. I don't want to, when I was younger, it was very different. Okay. Don't get me wrong. But as you get older, I think you look at it a little differently. And I think maybe that's why you and I are having this conversation right now. And that you see, I think it's easier to see beyond the person's public persona and iconic status at this age than it is when you're maybe in your 20s or 30s.
Yeah, there's just so much to take in about that. It's hard to know where to start to talk about it, but that's why my baseline rule is like, just give the people space. If they want to, fine. They don't know me. The tall, weird guy in the room, it's going to be okay.
Yeah, it's a good rule. It's a good rule. So, I mean, to your point, maybe that is why he sort of tore it all down. But I tell you what, if you're going to tear something down, they sure as hell collectively replaced it with the most beautiful, heartfelt, creative, powerful, majestic thing. I'm running out of adjectives that they possibly could have. If you're going to tear down the wall and replace it with something like this, I want to know your architect. I want to talk to your builders. It's tremendous. I mean, what an accomplishment.
Power hates a vacuum.
Yeah.
So in the absence of a third album, to your point, there never was another album after this, another studio album. What takes its place? And it wasn't a band, it was an uprising of bands from the Northwest. And their ideology, their way of life, the weather, like every little bit of that went into forming it. But I don't think you get that movement without Tin Machine.
No, I don't think so either. I think there are shades of this. There are certainly shades of this all over Nirvana. And there are certainly shades of this all over Soundgarden as well. In terms of not just, the tunefulness and melody is always there. There's always those little parts that you can sort of hum along that catch you instantly, but also sort of the unbridled creativity involved in it and the willingness to step out on a ledge, the willingness to take risks, sonic or otherwise, lyrical or otherwise. I agree with you. I think this really was the stepping stone. And I don't think any of us saw it for what it was at the time. I know I didn't.
That's the beauty of recording and albums and that industry. It's those we'll always have Tin Machine, Joe. But we really
There's
will. Those things were left, and we got to talk about it today.
Yep.
Really enjoying this one.
Same. Ever grateful, sir.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the Hard Volume Experience, and we sincerely hope you enjoyed the nerdery on display here. I need to let you know that the music you heard is the sole property of the authors, musicians, publishers, and whomever else holds the copyright. We don't own these songs, and we are absolutely not profiting from this music appreciation podcast in any way, shape, or form. We do it at our own expense because we love it.
The Hard Volume Experience theme, Caballero, was written and performed by Joe Natoli. Artwork and photography seen in this podcast is the property of whoever holds the copyright unless otherwise specified by us. Details are in the show notes. Folks, before we close, consider checking out St. Baldrick's Foundation online at stbaldricks.org. St. Baldrick's supports childhood cancer research. Because no hospital has a monopoly on good ideas, St. Baldrick's supports more childhood cancer research grants than any other charity. Thanks, and we'll see you on the next one.